Hello, my name is Susan Rose, and welcome to the show all about artists. Our guest today is the talented artist Dawn Nelson, who resides at the Eclipse Mill Artist Loft in North Adams. Welcome to the show, Dawn.
Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you for asking me to do this.
So tell me, Dawn, where did you grow up?
I actually am a Midwesterner. I grew up outside of Chicago and in southern Wisconsin. So if you think about sort of the southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois border, sort of in that area, yeah.
When did you realize that you were an artist?
Second grade.
Second grade?
Yeah, I remember I was in second grade. I knew somebody drew a thing on the page and said, turn it into something. And I immediately knew what to turn it into. And from then on, I knew I was an artist. And it was me and Orchard Battistoni were the two artists in our class. And we both knew it and everyone else knew it. And that was it. You know, never occurred to me that there was anything else that I should be
Want
doing.
to do. You
Yeah.
just knew it at that young age.
Yeah, yeah,
What path have you followed since your childhood
yeah. Well,
in the Midwest?
yeah, I was really lucky because I went to school in a Chicago suburb where they had really wonderful art programs. So the classes were fabulous. We learned tons of stuff. High school art was just out of this world. So my aim, from the time I got to high school was to figure out how not to have to go anywhere but the art room once I got to school in the day. And pretty much by my senior year, that was it. I had taken everything I had to take, and the rest of the day was spent in the art room. So that happened, and then I actually went to a little teeny college called Illinois Wesleyan University in Bloomington, Illinois, and they had a little art school there that was just a crackerjack art school. And I was in this class of 25 kids, and most all of us are still making art today. So
Really?
yeah, really unusual. So I was lucky, I got to sort of find my crowd. And the guy who was director of the school at that time had a philosophy that an art school should be a community of artists where everybody stands shoulder to shoulder in support of each other finding their path. And that really is something that I took to heart, and I've continued following that for my whole life, really. So, I've stayed a part of a community of artists. I take classes every summer through Art New England, most every summer. And I have a little a posse of girls there, and one guy who come back every summer, and we call ourselves Duende's Daughters, the daughter of the spirit of creativity. And I've been doing that every summer with them, and in later on in Jamaica Plain, once I moved out to the East Coast, I started open studios there. Quite a while ago. It must be 30-ish years ago now. And then I came out here, and here I've gotten connected both with the Eclipse Mill and with Future Labs Gallery.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah,
I
that was
like
a fun night.
having a community of artists that I'm a part of, and I think it makes it much nicer to do work, So
How have you made your living as an artist?
I made my living first as an art therapist and second as an art teacher.
Really?
I worked as an art therapist and worked in mental health,
I
primarily
didn't know
with
that.
schizophrenia for 10 years, right out of college. And then I switched over to teaching middle school, which is sort of a natural transition, and an easier work in many ways, more lighthearted. And I taught middle school for 30 years in Weston, outside of Boston, in Massachusetts. So that's how I made my living, and I'm very grateful that I was able to find a way of making my living doing what I love to do and doing things that I believe in. So,
That's quite, I'm taken back.
oh,
That's quite a journey.
thank you.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, you were before saying, "Oh, you can move chairs,"
Yeah, moving the
well,
chairs. I
I've
didn't
done.
think we were going to get all this up. But when I saw you move, I said, it's going up.
You are one of a number of people who have known me through my life who would
Yeah.
describe that same thing. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Can you, excuse me, how did you stay active in making art throughout your teaching career?
Yeah, I think that Art New England and going up
That
to,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a huge factor. I also made it a point to keep showing my work. I always showed at open studios. Once I got my studio out here in North Adams, I was showing in two open studios, Jamaica Plain and North Adams at the Eclipse Mill. I went to summer workshops every summer at Art New England in Bennington, and I often went down to take workshops with Tim Hawksworth and Lala Zeitlin in Philadelphia or at Lala's farm. So I really made it a point to get together, get myself in a position where I could focus on making art, even though I was teaching. I would take, ML King Day weekend or something like that, and I would go and do a workshop. So I would be doing some intense work, and so I've been lucky because I've been able to keep working and keep developing along the way, all the way through, even when I was teaching. Grateful for that.
How would you describe your artwork? What is it about? And
It's funny. My first big show in Boston was called Innerscapes, Outerscapes, and there are times that I've done more figurative work, and there are times that I've done more abstract work. But I think, regardless of whether the work has been figurative or abstract, um, it's had to do with what's going on inside me in relationship to what's going on outside me. That's really, I think, stayed pretty consistent all the way through. That's been, they say a writer has only one story, maybe an artist does too, and that would be mine. With these more abstract pieces, and for quite a while now, I've been working really hard towards starting a piece without any preconception of where it's going to end up. So I look at a blank canvas
Okay.
and I have no idea where it's going to go. I get my paint set up and I get my surface that I'm going to be painting on set up, and I dip in and I make a mark, and then I respond to that mark. And I see where that takes me.
I can relate to that.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can relate to what you're saying because I do the same thing. It comes from within. I make a line, and then all of a sudden, there it is.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's unusual to have that talent like that. That all of a sudden there is
Yeah.
just a couple of lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's I feel like the brush is almost like a diviner, uses the stick to find water. I use the brush to find myself in a way.
That's a wonderful way to put
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So, all of these are pieces that, there are some images that have come out of them, we may have ideas about what some of those images are, and we may or may not agree on the what we're seeing in them. And I don't need anyone to agree with me about what I see in an image. I think if an image hits someone else and touches someone else, that's fine. However it touches you is good with me.
That's what art is all about.
Yeah.
And I think the audience should know that, because when you go and you see an art piece, you see something in it, and the artist may never had you haven't seen, and vice versa.
Yep, exactly. And I think in a sense, I see my job, and you maybe do too, see your job is trying to connect with that part of myself that is truly human. And that's a piece that so often gets lost in our world is the human piece. And I think that if we have a mission, at least if I have a mission, my mission is to practice staying connected and to share that as a light to other people to see how they may connect with what's human in themselves. So that feels like what I do.
Well, I'll tell you, this is amazing what you do, and in the back there's some paintings, as you can see, on the board there, the white board, of all the paintings that you've done also. And Dawn, what it's the thing there, it says Dawn Nelson, artist. Is that your
These are some pictures that there was a man who has just recently moved to the Eclipse Mill named Carlos Casedo, and he is many things. He's an artist, but he's also a photographer, and he asked me if he could come down and take pictures of me working. So those are photographs that he recently took of me at work, and I think they're good because you can get a sense of what it's like. I sort of dive into the paint.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking there, especially the one up above there.
Yeah. So, and I just love those photographs. So that's what that is. And this is one of those paintings earlier. This painting is a huge painting. Some people may be familiar with this painting because it was hanging at Andrew Fitch's building at Eagle in Maine for maybe 6 or 8 months, and now it's moved over to the Down Street Hotel, where it's been for maybe 4 or 5 months. But this is a huge painting. It's
How
like
big did you say?
about, I would say it's about, I would say it's, I'm not sure exactly, but I'd say 6 feet tall probably, and maybe 13, 14 feet wide. So
That's big.
That's a big one.
That's big.
Yeah, that's on loose canvas. That's not stretched. So I just painted on loose canvas, and it's actually stapled into the wall. Because it's too big to move around. If I want to work that big, I've got to roll it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So those are things there. And this here, this is the front page of my my web page. And you were saying, how can people
How can people
get in touch with me?
in touch with you?
It's www.dawnnelsononeword.org. That's the only tricky part. And that's my web page, and it will tell you about this project and a whole lot of other projects that I've done over the years. So that's what this stuff is.
I like the mix of paint. The blues and the yellows and the light greens.
Yeah.
It's almost like a ladder over there.
Yeah,
It's like a ladder to heaven, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's so interesting that you say that. And there's some fire in the background, but I'm trying to get out to heaven, is where that sort of landed with me, and I'm glad that you picked that up. You know, you wouldn't have to, but I feel the same way about that
You
piece.
do?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
isn't
So
that something?
yeah, so sometimes you do stuff, and it's surprising. Other people read it like you do, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter, you know. So
Yeah, that's true. That's really something that we both,
yeah,
because a lot of times people don't see what the artist sees.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What artists have you been I mean, what artists have inspired you?
You know, there's a lot of artists that have inspired me, but I think at this point in my life, the people that I'm looking back at are the abstract expressionists, and particularly the women abstract expressionists. I I was really lucky that in college I got to meet Grace Hardigan, and have run into her at certain. She's now gone, but have run into her at certain points over my life, and I always just valued that so much. And Helen Frankenthaler, who went to Bennington, and all of Lee Krasner. You know, the women took the back seat to the guys at that time,
Exactly.
but their work was remarkable. And that's when I was growing up. I remember in grade school we had this thing called a weekly reader, and it was like a
Oh,
little. Remember that?
yes, I
Yes.
do.
And they had who was it? I can't.
Oh, for gosh sake,
And they had an artist
you
on the
really brought
cover.
me back.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So an abstract expressionist artist on the cover, and I just thought, oh, look at that. And, the paintings had to do with action, and they had to do with movement, and, they had to do with letting your body take you where the painting was going to go. And I think that stuff is what stuck with me the most through looking back at it now, I'm 73 years old now, so I'm at the older end of things, and so you can look back a little bit, and there's trends that you like at certain points, but then they kind of fade off, and become less important. When I was younger, I loved George O'Keeffe. I still love George O'Keeffe, but what has held me has been that whole thing of the movement. Elaine de Kooning, William de Kooning, all those people. I just love that stuff. So, anyway, I think that's sort of where my heart is. Also, I'm much more interested in work that has to do with your. It comes from the heart rather
Yes.
than the brain.
Yes.
I'm not interested in as much in sort of concepts as I am in that which which is human,
Human.
even the stomach,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, what the guts, what's
Yeah.
taken, what's coming at you, and
Right.
crunching it up
Yep.
and working through it. I think that we forget the importance of that kind of work in life, and I
Yes.
think that artists can really speak to that in a way that is so important. So that's something that I think about. The freedom to be human.
The freedom to be human. You say that the beginning, the part of nurturing a community of artists is important to you. Why is this, and how have you done this?
I think that people can get so lost. With the world calls us to do all kinds of things that don't always make sense. For example, an artist is often, well, what's going to sell? You see artists get reeled into what's going to sell. And I that breaks my heart.
Yeah, I, yeah.
I think that our role in the world is much higher than that, and it takes much more willingness to take risks. You know, you don't know. I don't know with these what people are going to think. You know, it could be anything. You know,
Yeah.
but I think that that's a risk worth taking because, again, it keeps the focus on what's important rather than what's, you know, what's going to sell.
What's going to sell?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think that for art, and I think also you can get stuck in a situation where you get something that works and you do the same thing, you know. And there are times when you get something that works and you do the same thing and you alter it and it follows this path that's over time changes slightly and you get to
Yes.
understand. And that's not what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
I think I think that you need the freedom to be able to keep yourself open to changes or to, you know, seeing things totally differently, you know, and that's scary to do, and that's something that you don't. A good example, my mother. I love my mother. And my mother was so worried about me. And what she was worried about is, are you going to be able to make a living? So she kept saying, Dawn, paint a lighthouse. Paint a lighthouse. Everybody loves a lighthouse, you know. And at that time I was doing fairly figurative work and I really thought about it. And it's really funny because my mom died and you know, I miss her terribly. I miss her terribly, you know, but my work freed up a lot after she died and really got a lot looser and got a lot better. And I remember Tim and Lala, my mentors, were talking to me and they said, well, what's the message here? You know, and I said, the message is don't paint a lighthouse, be the lighthouse. And but I think that takes courage.
Oh,
And
yes.
for you to have the ability to say, okay, I'm going to try to be the light. I'm going to let myself be the lighthouse, you know. That's
Yes.
scary.
Oh,
So
sure.
I think that the more we know that and the more we can be that to other people and the more we can stand behind people and taking risks, and the more we can say, good for you, you were willing to give it a try, the
Yes.
more everybody does better. You know, I mean, when anybody does better, everybody does better. You know, I think that that's so true. So the group, if it's respectful and honest and if the dialogue is real, the group can help you get where you can possibly be in a way that if your mom's telling you to paint a lighthouse,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard not to, you know.
Yes.
So it's a lonely business being an artist, but and it's not always a business that people who are not artists understand exactly.
Yes.
But when artists will stand by each other in their process, I think it makes all the difference in the world. Is that a good answer? Is that
It sure is.
okay? Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. I do it in a million ways, but you know, but
I wanted to ask you a question. You know, when you start up a piece and then it continues and continues and continues, and then you stop and you do something else
yeah,
altogether different,
yeah,
and then try and do what you did in the beginning.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's like trying to, like you say you do, I'm just making a flowers in a vase,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
abstract.
yeah,
And then you go on to doing something else. And
yeah,
then you go back and you say, oh, I think I want to do
yeah,
that again.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes it just doesn't work.
yeah. You could never do it. I could never
can-
do it again. I can never
Yeah,
do
I
it again.
mean, yeah, I
And
know.
every
That's why I
one of
wanted
these
to ask.
every one of these paintings has gone through, probably 12, 13, 14, 15 transitions to
Yeah.
get where they are. So, totally different things. So don't try to go back, only go forward. Just keep going forward. The trick is, when are you done? The trick is stopping yourself at a point where it's still fresh.
Yes.
It's so easy to paint the freshness right out of something. So
Yeah, I can
overworking it.
overwork it too.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And sometimes you overwork it and you blow it, and that one's falls off the back of the truck. You just gotta leave it in the road, or go back to it later. But I think that you can't go back, and that's the importance of not having an image and letting it follow you where it needs, where you need to go.
and
Is
how
what
do
it
you
is.
price your work?
That's always the hardest thing. It's always the hardest thing.
It is.
I
It's
think that
depend on the material and
the place that I start is a price per square inch. I do it
Yeah.
by size. It feels like the most logical. There are some pieces that I feel are particularly special, and I may amp it up a little. There are pieces I really want to let go of and get out of there, but they're okay that I don't need them destroyed. I mean, duck those down a little, but I think starting with a per square inch
Okay,
is
that
the one
sounds
that's
right. A lot of other artists have
have said the
that.
same thing. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
The artist that I had on before you, she priced the same way. We have 58 seconds left.
Okay.
So
I just
what
want
is
to
it
say
you want to
thank you.
say?
I want to say thank you. That's all I want to say. It's so nice to have had this chance to talk about my work and to talk about it really, as
Yes.
opposed to, that's it.
Okay, well, now we have 33 seconds left, and I want to say thank you so much for coming and setting up all this. I didn't think you'd be able to do it. I really didn't. But when I saw you start working, I said, no way, this is all going up. I saw you work.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
yeah, well, thank you so much for
And
coming.
thank you for doing this show. What a sweet thing for the community to get to hear people talk really about their work.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I thank you very much for that.
yeah, yeah.
Well, bye, everybody. So long.